Oregon State coach Jonathan Smith sees nothing but opportunity. Corvallis, or. It was spring 1998 and the scrawny backup quarterback for Oregon State, a program marred in 28 consecutive losing seasons, was turning heads at practice. Scout team coaches loved Jonathan Smith. He understood the game plan, got rid of the ball quickly and took his job as the prep guy seriously. He was a football junkie and gym rat, endearing himself to staff and teammates with his love of the game. Almost every evening, after practice and team meetings, offensive coordinator Paul Chryst would walk into his office and find Smith, the third-string quarterback, sitting in Chryst's chair, feet up on the desk, flipping through game clips and studying how he could improve. He looked, coaches thought, like one of them. That Smith, who checked in at just 5'10" and 194 pounds, even wound up on a Division I roster, was a happy accident of sorts. In 1997, Beavers coach Mike Riley had gone to Glendora High in Los Angeles to recruit an offensive lineman by the name of Dustin Jans. While visiting the school, Riley struck up a conversation with Smith, Jans's teammate who dreamed of one day coaching college football. Riley offered Smith a walk-on spot, with the promise of a scholarship should Smith ever get to second string. Neither had any expectation that Smith would play. They both turned out to be very wrong. More, winners and losers from the first day of the early signing period Woken column. Why do you need a signing day at all? Playoff, can the Alabama's offense keep pace with Clemson? Riley likes to say Oregon State's world changed on October 24, 1998, when Smith was inserted midway through the second quarter that day at Washington and proceeded to throw for 469 yards in a 35-34 loss. Smith took the starting job after that, and 2 years later, quarterbacked Oregon State to the biggest win in program history, a 41-9 thumping of Notre Dame in the 2001 Fiesta Bowl. I always thought if Oregon State was ever going to build statues of two guys outside a stadium, it should be Jonathan Smith and running back Ken Simonton, Riley told USA Today Sports. What this place became, it was built on those guys' backs. Now, Smith is tasked with leading another resurgence in Corvallis. This one seems just as improbable as the first. And because of Smith's background, he might be the perfect person for the job. The Beavers are not quite in the same dire situation as 1998, but they have plenty of current problems. After Riley, the winningest coach in program history, abruptly left for Nebraska in December 2014, Oregon State hired Gary Anderson away from Wisconsin. At the time, it seemed to be the coup of the coaching carousel. But Anderson bailed midway through 2017 in bizarre fashion, leaving the Beavers lurching. For the second time in 3 seasons they finished winless in conference play, bringing their overall record to 7-29 in the 3 seasons since Riley left. Oregon State is widely considered one of the toughest jobs in Power 5, due to its remote location and rainy climate. The Beavers typically recruit against the likes of the Arizona schools, where the sun shines year-round, and the LA schools, which boast the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. Stanford and Washington, both Pac-12 North foes, are 2 of the most successful programs in college football the last few seasons. This year, the Beavers lost 11 games by an average of 24.6 points. Their only victory came against winless Portland State to fix the tailspin, in what might be the toughest division in college football, no less. Oregon State turned to Smith, who spent the last 6 seasons working for Washington's Chris Peterson. And just like when he was a walk-on in Corvallis, Smith sees nothing but opportunity. At his introductory press conference, where Smith wore his glittering 2010 Pac-10 championship ring, he opened by saying, "It is great to be home," which prompted an outbreak of applause from boosters and former players, many of whom flooded athletic director Scott Barnes' voicemail with endorsements for Smith during the coaching search. Smith became noticeably emotional when he called this his dream job in his dream town. "Oregon State fits me," he said. "And I fit Oregon State." Then Smith went on to say that the Beavers were not that far away, a sentiment he repeated adamantly this week in a conversation with USA Today Sports. They had some real momentum going into this year after beating the Ducks in 2016, and then my experience playing for a half. They were right there with us, and I thought we, Washington, were really good that day. We were undefeated at the time, Smith says. Sometimes when it starts going south, one bad play turns into, oh here we go again, and then the morale goes, too. Smith says 4 years at taught him what it takes to win in the Pac-12, and he thinks Oregon State has the pieces. Plus, if every other Pac-12 North school, including once downtrodden Washington State, can compete for a conference title, why not the Beavers? Smith's biggest takeaway is as a walk-on, something he experienced with both Riley and then Dennis Erickson was the way coaches dove into me, gave me opportunities, showed me what it is to work hard and chase your dream, on and off the field. He never felt less than or devalued because of his backup status. That confidence translated to the field. My first spring, I remember getting some opportunities with the second group, throwing some completions, moving the ball and thinking to myself, I can do this thing, I can compete at this level, Smith says. Smith won't reveal Oregon State's offensive scheme plans, but says that when it comes to recruiting quarterbacks, he knows he can find the right guys. Then, with a sly smile he adds, and I know good ones comes in all shapes and sizes. He knows, too, that even the unheralded ones can accomplish what seems like an impossible task. Now, he'll take that attitude into his first head coaching gig. Smith understands that trust needs to be rebuilt in his locker room. He is the fourth head coach for some players on the roster, and that will take time. Smith himself went through 3 position coaches in 5 years, so he can relate to the unsettling feeling that change creates. But he also believes he knows how to solve this place. One of Smith's first moves as person in charge was to hire Riley, who was fired by Nebraska on November 25. Riley's official title is assistant head coach, different from associate head coach, and his role is still to be determined. Riley brings great value schematically, Smith says, pointing out he can work on both sides of the ball. Many don't realize Riley's roots are in defense, though he is widely respected for his role in developing pro-style quarterbacks. Bringing back the former head coach might seem like a strange move for the first-time head coach. Smith doesn't see it that way. He ain't coming back to be the head coach. This isn't some head coach in waiting thing, Smith laughs. It takes a little bit to get your head around it, but if you well define his role and understand what he brings, it's a home run. I know the relationships he has in recruiting. I know what I want this to look like, and he was completely on board for helping make that happen. Like all new head coaches, Smith has spent most of the last 3 weeks on the road, though he'll now take a brief holiday break. Oregon State needs help at virtually every position on the roster. The Beavers signed 11 on Wednesday, the first ever early signing day in college football, and is especially desperate for quarterback depth.